Hi, John Sharp here of John Sharp's Walking History Tour, Beaufort, South Carolina. Standing in front of the Robert Smalls house. Robert Smalls, a slave, born a slave here in 1839, out back in what is called the Dependency House, the slave quarters. Born a slave to the slave cook of the owners of this house, the Admiral and Mrs. McKee. Mrs. McKee, in an act of kindness and compassion, actually teaches this young slave to read and write. He becomes an educated slave. And at the beginning of the Civil War, he is working as a stevedore up in Charleston, South Carolina. And there he becomes a Civil War hero. Late one night, after the white crew of the ship that he has become the de facto pilot of because of his ability to read and write, the white crew goes ashore. Robert Smalls brings his family and the slave deckhands and their families aboard her. And then he very calmly puts on the captain's hat and coat and steams the planter out from under the Confederate guns across Charleston Harbor and into the hands of the blockading and rather startled United States Navy. Robert Smalls becomes a hero with that event, goes to Washington, D.C., where he meets Abraham Lincoln, and he is commissioned an officer in the United States Navy. Comes home to Little Beaufort at the end of the Civil War, gets himself elected to be the first black man elected to the South Carolina Assembly, and then Robert Smalls will be the first black man ever elected to the United States Congress, serving 5 terms as the United States Congressman. He does not leave that act of kindness by the Mrs. McKee unpaid. Toward the end of her life, now a widow, destitute, in failing health and memory, out for her morning walk, she becomes disoriented, standing lost, alone, and confused in the middle of a street. Robert Smalls, on his way to work now down on Bay Street, spies his ex-mistress, goes up to greet her, takes her by the hand and walks her back out here and right up these front steps, through that front door, and into that home. And from that day until the day the widow dies here, Robert Smalls and his family treat her as the mistress of her old home. Just one of the many incredible stories of the people that live in this beautiful little town. Come down here and see us, please.